Hello, dear friends, my lovely audience. Welcome to the East West Show. Jack Chow on the East West Show with the GNE TV. Today with me is my good friend, Mr. Chris Nebe. He is the founder and CEO of a Hollywood famous production company called the Monarax Hollywood Corporation. And he himself has a huge credit, taller than himself, with successful films. And his theory of Mysterious China is now a 20-series rich credit line already, right? And he just came back from China, and he's being invited by other countries to do the same line of production, and he is getting famous. But here, he remains as my brother, as a good friend, and I order him around all the time. No. Let me rephrase it. I follow him around all the time. All right. Welcome back to the show.
谢谢你老朋友. Nice to see you again.
All right. Good. Big as your name is, I still feel the same way. The old Nebe of the old time. How about that?
That's it. That
Very
should
good.
be the way.
All right. Good. And the brand new subject you brought me, you throw me the other day, talking about the millennials, right? It's a generation to say, lost generation whatsoever, without having to overstate it, right? We would like to find out what are the characteristics so special in this group of people, this group of young people. So, and you want to start with why we call them lost generation, please?
Because you see, after college, the so-called millennials, they faced slim pickings as far as lucrative jobs were concerned. Mm-hmm. And economics fear that millennials will never recover from the 2008 global financial crisis and the effects of the Occupy Wall Street movement.
Okay, one by one. Why would they say they are the ones waiting for lucrative jobs after college or after university?
Because, you see, they had taken on huge debts for their student loans, and they couldn't pay them back. And also, after college, after graduation, they used to live with their parents because they didn't have a job, and it was too expensive for them to pay for rent, which has gone up tremendously. So living expenses were too much, and they were unable to pay back their credit cards. So since most of Americans obviously are only a few paychecks away from having no money.
Some are even paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
There's nothing in between.
So that is the reason why especially millennials are faced with a problematic future.
All right. Why people say that they are, some of them are never going to get out from the tsunami of 2008, from the financial crisis of 2008?
You see, the millennials are people who are born between 1986 and 1996. And the scarcity of jobs during the Great Recession of the late 2000s and early 2010 has resulted in lengthy post-collegial sojourns in their parental homes and lingering doubts about their future. Because the group is at risk of becoming what they call a lost generation. It may be a little bit too dramatic, but it is a fact because you see, even though right now people are, there is almost very little unemployment, but these numbers are not correct because there is a lot of unemployment, but many people have just given up looking for jobs and they don't list themselves anymore.
Yeah. What I cannot understand is the part that they say some of them are never going to get out of 2008, the financial crisis.
Because, you know, Jack, today a lot of jobs well-paying jobs are getting more scarce, and jobs which are not well-paid are available, but people don't want to do them. That's one reason. I mean, if you are a college graduate, you not necessarily want to be a trash collector. So this is a problem, and you know, it has to do with deindustrialization. It has to do with many factors. Life is changing. We have another, I wrote you another article about, will robots replace my job? You see, this is another thing. Automatization is becoming so permanent that it takes less and less people to do actual jobs. And only, as always, the best will get jobs, and the best will be able to stay in their jobs. Lucrative jobs I'm talking about.
I understand one thing, because starting at the year of 2000, you're talking about the not only we entered into the 21st century, we entered into also another time, epoch of great science technology.
Yeah, high tech is improving so rapidly. If you think about that, now they're talking about self-driving cars. Just think about how many jobs will be lost because of that. I'm personally
and they are the one, on one hand, they are catching up the good time of our time, and everybody will know something, right? And on the other hand, they are not only even financially, they are not even emotionally strong to stay on their own. Do you think that is a contradiction in between?
No, there's no contradiction, you're right. And also, you see, the one thing it has done, that these millennials are politically more skeptical, and I believe that the midterm elections will be largely influenced by millennials, and which means that the Democrats will probably win the elections and win the House majority and even the Senate, because these disenfranchised people realize that things have to be, there have to be ways found that the wealth of this country, because this is still a wealthy country, has to be more evenly distributed. See, because now the whole economic picture of this country, and that is supported by both parties, not only by one party, the economic picture is that they are supporting money to go to the elite. With other words, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And this is a fact. And it's a very egoistic fact, because on the long run, it does not work. You cannot exploit people indefinitely.
To me, it is an issue that is related to everybody.
Yeah.
To everybody, even including their parents.
Yes.
Right, who are still paying, who are still sharing the same house with their sons and daughters, right? And on the other hand, it is not a problem of the young people themselves. It's a societal problem.
It's a system.
It's a system
You
problem.
see, America was once, when you were young and I was young, America was the glowing star on the horizon for everybody in the world. Why? Because they had a very strong and expanding middle class. This time is over.
Okay, now, looking at the age though, they might be the age 22 to 20, no, 18 to 22.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 20,
18 or
23.
20, 18 to 24.
Right.
Right? that range, right? Okay, now, I want to prove my point, okay? Back then, when you were 22, were you on your own?
Yes.
Right. Doing what?
Doing film business.
Doing film business,
Yes.
right? Okay. Now give you any of the young people out on the street, right? Do you think they are as mature as you were 22?
I don't know if I was mature with 22, but I was clever enough to be my own boss and make my own money.
I know. Being clever is one thing, being mature.
Right. I don't know. I don't think it's a question of maturity. It's a question of availability of opportunities. And you see, when you're facing a situation where in the 2008 crash, there were over 3 million Americans who lost their homes. And that's 3 million, and others were probably still holding on to it and couldn't pay their mortgage. And this America once was that glowing star on the horizon because of middle class. Take China.
I agree. Yeah.
China, for example, didn't have a middle class, but they created within 40 years a middle class, and they keep creating it. And
but China has the China problem too.
Of course.
China has the supreme rich, China has the supreme poor.
Right, but still it has a growing middle class. And like the strength of the European countries is that in general they all have quite a solid middle class. And the middle class is usually the healthy core of a country. If you diminish the middle class, you're basically also expediting economic problems.
Okay, my whole point is that they were born in the golden time, right?
Yes.
And yet they were given less chance to test their ability or to build their experiences.
Right.
And yet they are facing a time harder than back then the time you be a filmmaker yourself.
Yes, that was a time of opportunity for a lot.
Now, one benefit, two disadvantage that they have to face. So that's why it is unfair to call them a lost generation. It is a generation that calls for a loss of understanding. Am I right?
Loss of opportunities.
Loss
of understanding.
Oh, not that much opportunities, because they are still competing with the baby boomers. Some of the baby boomers are still active. They are still there occupying the job. For them to come overtake it, number one, they are not mature enough. Number two, the millennials do not want to go.
Maybe correct. That I don't know. But you see, the deindustrialization of America is, of course, a disadvantage for the people, because there are not enough service jobs available, and you can't always put everything on the high-tech sector. So it is a problem, and that will not go away.
Okay,
because
my dear
meanwhile,
friend,
they get older too.
Okay, my dear friend, it looks that it is not only a economical issue; it is a social issue too. Let's take a short moment now. When we come back, we will continue finding more about a bunch of the young people. Stay with us, please. Hello, dear friends. My lovely audience, welcome back to the show, dear ladies and gentlemen. If you happen to be somebody's parents, this somebody may be your daughter and son within the range of 20, 24, 25, or even 18 to 20, 24, 25. They are called the Millennials, the one born around the turn of last century. Okay. We're putting together a lots of information to characterize this generation. With me, my friend Chris Nibby from Hollywood. He is a filmmaker himself, director, producer, screenwriter, photographer, everything, well, all together. So now he is using his photographic eye to look at the problems. Right now, we say it is a financial problem because lots of them have to borrow the student loan, right? And which they have to pay probably the rest of their life, right? And in the meantime, though, lots of them are staying home. That, well, when you have a youngster staying home, though, you can enjoy your retirement life, right? So that influences the older people. So as a societal problem or societal phenomena, though, do you see the same thing in Germany?
No.
In any other European countries?
I don't know. In Germany, I don't see it because, you see, we don't have student loans. Our education is free, completely free, and top-notch. The education is top-notch. It's not like here, where usually government-provided education is inferior to private education or private universities, and that's why it is so expensive for Americans to get a good education. And that's why in America, for families, the fact that the children have to go to college is a financial factor. It's not in Germany. It's the government provides it, and they're doing a good job. So,
all right.
I think in most of the European countries who also all have a very extensive socialist welfare system, it's the same. But in Germany, I can assure you, you don't have. There are private schools, but it's not that you have to take student loan
for
to get a
higher
good
education. Is it still free in Germany?
Yes.
If you do you go to university,
yes,
you take your degrees.
Yes,
and
the only challenge you have to is that originally it used to be completely free, and everybody could go, and that resulted that some people, because you also get those who didn't have money to support themselves, would get some money from the government. So some people became students for life. And then, I don't remember when, but in the last century it was changed, and you have to make the numerus clausus. The numerus clausus is something where you have to make a test which enables you to be accepted at a university. If you don't pass a test, you cannot go.
The same thing happens here and happens in China, right? You have to be at a certain level, your academic achievement, to get into a higher education, though. And in China, they do the overall countrywide assessment test, right? For that, if you pass, you pass. If you don't pass, your whole life is gone. This is a one-time deal, right? Okay, now, we're talking about mostly what we see here, the young people. To be honest with you, I don't think that I like them so much, right? Because they show you a totally different way of life that you can't even accept, let alone the fact that you agree to. For example, the other day I walked into an office, it's a friend office, there are a bunch of people there. The moment I walk in, the bigger people, the older people stood up. These young people looking at you coming in, there's nothing. There's nothing they did in response.
I understand what you're talking about. It's a courtesy element, and but probably nobody told them, or maybe I don't know the reason. But it's also it's, yes, you're right. A lot of people are not polite and don't give respect, and actually it's so easy because the easiest way to make friends and to make people smile is if you're polite, and it costs you nothing, and it actually is a part of a good education which you receive. It's maybe not so important to know exactly where certain things are located or you have certain knowledge about history. I think the interaction between people is actually very important, and I can see what you mean. It's becoming more callous, the whole interaction, you know.
I believe I noticed something much worse than this, right? You go restaurant, especially on weekdays, on weekends, well, you see those people, those young people, and they are in a restaurant, they are so loud, they talk like dirty, they act like they are not, well, they no longer act like educated intellectuals. Right? They act like what? Like a bunch of well, you know, I don't know, loafers. Right?
And
no respect, no nothing, and there's no guard on the lips, and when they drink beers, then it's in a messy way, in a loud way.
No dress code.
No dress code, no nothing.
You know, and all that goes together. You're right. It's maybe because the whole world has
lower hanging pants.
Yeah.
Make them walk like this, not walk, waddle. Make them waddle like this.
Yeah.
And girls with the top that barely covers anything, and those kind of thing.
Yeah, you're right. But I think that is a general decline of civilization, because you find that almost everywhere. You know, it used to be that people paid attention to being dressed.
That's a big problem. Back in the old days, if we invited girls to go with us, we dress up, and girls would dress up too. We sit there and they there, well, cross-legged, well, with skirt or dress and everything.
But women still do that. I'm always fascinated.
Women, not young girls.
Yeah, that's true.
Be specific, right?
Yeah.
These young girls will become tomorrow's women.
Correct.
Right? So that's exactly where the worry is. There's once was a Chinese philosopher said this following, that a country, the future, lies in this woman, in this girl. This girl will become woman, and this woman will become mother. And to everybody, our first tutor, our first teacher is our mother.
Correct.
Right. So in a country who fails with the young girls shall fail the whole game. Am I right?
That is correct.
So,
but let's get back to the millennials. You see, the millennials, but now we are talking about a general degeneration,
excuse me,
degeneration of civilization. Because I mean, the way, and that's not only in America, that's all over. The way people dress and casualness is appalling.
All right. Let's take a short moment now. We come back to continue to find out, is it really this millennial problem, or is it really whole society problem? Stay with us. Hello, dear friends, my lovely audience. Welcome back to the show. Jack Chow on the East West with the GNE TV. Today, in talking about the millennials, I have my friend, Mr. Chris Nebe, a political commentator. Also, he is a film director with lots and lots of credit to talk about. As a film director, especially when he does his film for over 20 years with a documentary though, his attention is pinned on the societal issues. Right. With that much attention pinned on the societal issues, he might have a better take. So today we're picking up one of the issues, the millennials, how we understand the millennials. And I believe it's a big subject. Lots of people might tend to say, hey, no, we don't care. Those are kids, all right? We're too busy with our own stuff. Well, but today's kid will be tomorrow's you, me, everybody here on the stage playing, right? Like say, today's girls will be the woman, future woman, and will be the future mother. And the mother will give birth to lots of Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton, who knows? Or even a Jack Chow, or even a Chris Nippy, who knows? Right? So that together, how do we, from your societal point of view and artistic point of view, look at the millennials, please?
Very difficult, Jack, because you see, the Wall Street movement, which was ignited by the millennials, and it lasted about 2 months with its greatest notoriety, the occupation of the Zuccotti Park in New York, in New York's lower Manhattan, before it finally they were evicted and the activists had to move away and their tents were destroyed. The Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street movement still exists, and it's still very active on Twitter. There it touts and stands up for environmental policies and issues and criticizes racial inequality and injustice, as well as misguided tragic immigration regulations and other geopolitical issues and military conflicts that are created by the Anglo-Zionist lobby and the military-industrial complex elite in Washington and its unholy alliance with the apartheid state Israel. They do this, but they don't, they apparently are unable to change anything because the way things continue are obviously, it seems, to me at least, that they have less influence today than they had at the time when the Wall Street movement was occupying New York's lower Manhattan.
You mean the millennials?
Yeah. I think they have, it has disappeared because now the economic problems have become much larger for every American or for most Americans who seem to be living, as you said before, from paycheck to paycheck, many.
All right. On one hand, lots of people live from paycheck to paycheck, all right?
Yeah.
And on the other, we have noticed quite a few phenomenon, right, that there are jobs who they don't want to do.
Yes.
Right? Truck drivers, carpenters, right? Trash haulers, right? Or dry cleaners, or those stuff. Those are bottom line service kind of job nobody wants to do, right? They all want to think about those Google Office kind of a white collar job or Microsoft company job, that kind of thing. I believe majority would want that kind of job. The world doesn't go that way because the world has a luggage or has trash to drag along. So how do we handle the problem?
For example, Harvard University, Kennedy School of Institute of Politics showed that just 41% of 18 to 29 years old support American-style capitalism today, while 33% support socialism, whereby they may not, socialism in America is basically a dirty word. Socialism and communism is, for normal Americans, is the same. It is not, but it is in the American mind. So there is a broad activist support for so-called compassionate capitalism. Now this is a very idealistic phrase because it means you address glaring social problems, including but not limited to racial inequality and injustice and poverty and homelessness and so on, police brutality and abuses of basic human rights. But the activists have a very different definition of the American dream, which is less centered on economics and more around fairness, flexibility, and happiness. This is why Bernie Sanders has ignited the interest of the millennials, even though his message is also a little bit too futuristic. You can't change American system overnight. But I think, and that is, for me, always the fascinating thing is that in America, because you have free speech, things are openly discussed. And they're being talked to death, and they're rehashed, and so on. But America has this attitude of reinventing itself. You see, because they're not burdened by history. See, European countries or Asian countries, let's take China with almost 5,000 years of civilization, is burdened by history. Europe is burdened by history. And everything they do is, this country has no real significant history, and therefore it's young, it's experimenting. And therefore,
in other words, it's the combination of all the problems just laid on the shoulder of this young generation.
Right.
Right? Which is unfair to them.
Right.
Right?
Very good. You're right. It's laid on them, and they don't know how to cope with it.
Make them feel bad. Right?
And the old ones don't need to cope with it either, because things are changing so fast.
There are two things: make them feel bad, one thing, and make them look bad.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they don't know where to get their hands on, what to do, what not to do.
Yeah.
Right? In the meantime, being born to the golden time of ours, where technology kind of explode, right? They may automatically think, you want me to pick up the trash? Come on, not me. But who?
The illegal immigrants.
Yeah. Something, okay, now, all right, that probably gives us another window to look into the immigration information. Reformation, right?
I will tell you, I think these upcoming midterm elections they will show a very significant change and in direction to America. I'm sure, because I think I am now here in America 30 years, and I have never seen the country so political, galvanized, and active.
All right. Actually, as a matter of fact, we really feel that way because our country has been divided, been polarized, been politically galvanized, and I believe that our young people look at us. Once they look at us, number one, they can't understand. They cannot understand what we are doing. Number two, what we are doing, they don't want to follow, right? So, such and such putting together where we have the lost generation or forgotten generation. How about that?
That's even better.
Yeah, forgotten generation. All right, my dear friend, let's take a moment now. Can we come back let's focus on the forgotten generation. Stay with us. Hello, dear friends, lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show. Jack Chow on the East West Show with GNE TV, having lots of fun with my friend Chris Nibby. Today our subject is millennials. Originally, we want to call them the lost generation, but halfway, we decided we want to use another subtitle, the forgotten generation. Because because people like ourselves, though, for example, we focus on what we do, we look forward, we look for, because nobody thinks about retirement at this age, well, we work on. But looking back, though, we have people on our tails. They are pushing us. They're pushing us. So when they push us, we got to give them a look, understanding look, like say how they want to push with us. And yet, I believe that you and I belong to the same generation, right? So what do you think that this generation of us can sit down with supposing we can, with them, with the 18-year-old, 20-year-old, to have a real discussion about how we can exchange?
Oh yes, you can. For example, you see the Parkland shooting in Florida. The young students created a movement which is remarkable. These are students, some of them are even not 18 years old. And they created a movement. You remember they had a magnificent march in Washington. And they are still very active, and they have really put pressure on the gun lobby, and they have really put pressure on politicians to take a stand as far as gun control is concerned. Even though you see gun control in America is very difficult because almost everybody has a gun, so how are you going to control guns? It's not
literally you can't do it.
It's almost impossible because everybody has a gun, and also America has this tradition. It was built on having a gun because these European people who were looking for a better future, they came here with a gun and they shot their way to economic success by the gun. And that's why America has a different way of doing business, and that's why America is America. In a positive as well as in a negative way.
I'm really interested in the fact, suppose that we do get a chance to sit down, though, what can we discuss with? What do we have in common? In other words, do we have anything in common? What do we have in common?
I mean, if you look at the Parkland students, we have a lot in common with them, a lot, because they have gone right into the right direction, and they have done it excellent job, and they're still doing an excellent job. And it's not only them. I think, you see, we might, and I'm sure there will be, currently the realization is that generally America doesn't take its young voters very seriously. I think the midterm elections will be a big surprise for a lot of people, because they will show that there is a strong movement of activists, and most of them are young, who are supporting new and fresh ideas and directions.
That's why the other day say, wait until you see November 6th, the voting, you will see lots of young people of the millennials out would vote to make noises, to play in a way visible, right? Lots of their leaders shall become recognized, and so on and so forth. Now, with that said, though, that indicates that the generation, the forgotten generation, and our generation, you and our generation, we have something in common.
Oh yeah.
Don't we? Do we not?
Oh yes, we have a lot in common.
What do we have in common?
Because people like you and me, we think we are not just complacent and sit back there and say, okay, I don't care, everything is okay, I got my little life set up. We are thinking young, controversial, and we are looking at the challenges which are facing us. So we are, of course, let's call us liberal intellectuals. We are, of course, in a minority. But I think that, and this is something, as I said before, which always fascinates me in America. There is always this rejuvenation effort, you know. There are extreme atrocities and things are happening where you ask yourself, my God, for example, now recently, where they took away the children from the migrants who were illegally entering the country, and then there was an outcry across the nation, and it was stopped. Of course, now the government has these kids on hand and is facing a lot of problems. So there's always in America something which really, we the people, once they do act, they're able to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
That's not in every country like
you're right.
this.
Yes, you're right.
Other countries, you either have very established political systems or very authoritarian systems.
Because of the fact that people are under the influence of democracy,
yes,
they are likely to speak up once you give them a chance.
Right.
Once you make them to speak. Say,
or you encourage them.
For example, go to Parker time. Rose Parker, right?
Yeah.
The bus rider.
Yes, the
bus
black
rider.
lady who was on the bus. Yeah.
The great lady who first broke the rules, say, hey, who says I can't do it there, right? Mm-hmm. So lots of people follow. Lots of people then kind of on her side. Those people need somebody to walk in the front, to lead, right? Once there's a lead, the followers are quite a few, right? Unlike other countries, people are not educated under the democracy. They do not know, they do not feel they have the right. So if you want to promote something, better in the United States way.
Yes, but it's, of course, United States way is always, it's always too much in a way. You know, whatever it is, it's too much. It's gigantic. And then they cut back from gigantic to normal. You know, it's more in Europe, for example, things are happening more gradual and not that gigantic. Because, I mean, let's face it, 60 years ago, black people could not vote. Yet, a few years ago, you had, for an 8-year term, a black president. That is remarkable.
Look at the Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Right? So, not only he made the American history, but he becomes a hero in the United States recent history.
Right.
So
this is, you see, something very interesting in this country, and that always restores my faith in the future of the country, because it's evolving, it's constantly evolving. And you know, like in many countries, we couldn't have your show, we couldn't talk like we talk, because we would face severe problems of our message which we have. So let's see what happens in.
Do you think it goes on to all goes to the system that we should give credit to? Because with a system that when everybody enjoys the freedom, though, when everybody has the benefit of freedom, they can say what they want to say. At the time they wanted to say, and nobody leads them to say, there's somebody who walks out, be the leader though. And I mean, in the future, we can rely upon the new generation that much that all they need is a leader.
But that is everywhere the same, because from religion, you have had leaders, to politics, in history, you always had leaders, and they usually come out of nowhere, and they're there and make immense changes. So let's hope that there are leaders emerging here who will also make tremendous changes. But you see, the system itself protects itself. For example, why do you have elections on Tuesday? Why? It's a working day. As a working man, you have to take off time. If you are salaried by the hour, you're losing plenty of hours because you have to stand in line. So you're facing a financial sacrifice to vote. That's very clever. The system has arranged that. The powers to be, they have arranged that, because actually voting should be on a Sunday where everybody is free and everybody can go and has no restrictions. I'm sure that a larger percentage of voters doesn't go and vote because they're facing financial harm by going to vote. So they say, rather than losing 5 hours of minimum wage, I don't go to vote.
That is something I first heard of.
Yeah, but think
Heard
about
people
it.
mention, but you know, to certain families to give up 5 hours of income,
It's a lot of money.
that's going to be lots of money, right? And they will say rather, rather I get the money,
Yes.
rather than the right to vote.
So voting, I must say, I'm not familiar if we vote in Germany on Sunday, but for me, it would be voting day should be on Sunday. It should not be on a weekday.
They made it that day though, and that means that that day, voting itself is supposed to be work.
Yes.
All right. Okay, my dear friend, you're analyzing the new generation, which is the millennials. We find some hope. Only they need is that a moment to sit down with us, so that even we, with the white shingles over the roof, we can still sit down with them. And they, well, of course, kicking life, and they can't even sit there still for 5 minutes. And they are willing to sit down with us. So by putting the two generations together, probably we shall introduce a brand new generation to the society. Well, things are not that bad. So look it up and cheer up. All right, my dear friend, thank you for watching.